Welcome to day 2 of 13 Days of Halloween. Your host, the Natchan. We've been reading stories from More Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, collected by Alvin Schwartz. One Sunday morning. Ida always went to the 7 o'clock Sunday morning service at her church. Usually she heard the clanging of the first church bells while she was eating breakfast, but this morning she heard them while she was still in bed. That means I'm late, she thought. Ida jumped out of bed, quickly dressed, and left without eating or looking at the clock. It was still dark outside, but it usually was this time of year. Ida was the only one on the street. The only sounds she heard were the clattering of her shoes on the pavement. Everybody must already be in church, she thought. Ida took a shortcut through the cemetery. Then she quietly slipped into the church and found a seat. The service had already begun. When she caught her breath, Ida looked around. The church was filled with people she had never seen before, but the woman next to her did look familiar. Ida smiled at her. It's Josephine Kerr, she thought. But she's dead. She died a month ago. Suddenly, Ida felt uneasy. She looked around again. As her eyes began to adjust to the dim light, Ida saw some skeletons in suits and dresses. This is a service for the dead, Ida thought. Everybody here is dead but me. Ida noticed that some of them were staring at her. They looked angry, as if she had no business there. Josephine Kerr leaned toward her and whispered, "Leave right after the benediction, if you care for your life." When the service came to an end, the minister gave his blessing. "The Lord bless you and keep you," he said. "The Lord make his face to shine upon you." Ida grabbed her coat and walked quickly towards the door. When she heard footsteps behind her, she glanced back. Several of the dead were coming toward her. Others were getting up to join them. "The Lord lift up his countenance to you," the minister went on. Ida was so frightened she began to run. Out the door she ran with a pack of shrieking ghosts at her heels. "Get out!" one of them screamed. Another shouted, "You don't belong here," and ripped her coat away. As Ida ran through the cemetery, a third grabbed the hat from her head. "Don't come back," it screamed and shook its arm at her. By the time Ida reached the street, the sun was rising and the dead had disappeared. Did this really happen? Ida asked herself. Or have I been dreaming? That afternoon, one of Ida's friends brought over her coat and hat, or what was left of them. They had been found in the cemetery, torn to shreds. Sounds. The house was near the beach. It was a big old place where nobody had lived for years. From time to time, somebody would force open a window or a door and spend the night there, but never longer. 3 fishermen were caught in a storm and took shelter there one night. With some dry wood they found inside, they were able to make a fire in the fireplace. They lay down on the floor and tried to get some sleep, but none of them would sleep that night. First, they heard footsteps upstairs. It sounded like there were several people moving back and forth, back and forth. One of the fishermen called, "Oi! Who's up there?" The footsteps stopped. Then they heard a woman scream. The scream turned into a groan and then died away. Blood began to drip from the ceiling into the room where the fishermen lie. It began to form a puddle and it soaked into the wood. A door upstairs crashed shut, and again the woman screamed. "Not me!" she cried. It sounded as if she was running. her high heels tapping wildly down the hall. "I'll get you!" a man shouted, and the door shook as he chased her. Then silence. There wasn't a sound until the man had shouted began to laugh. Long peals of horrible laughter filled the house. It went on and on until the fishermen thought they would go mad. When finally it stopped, the fishermen heard someone coming down the stairs, dragging something heavy that bumped on each step. They heard him drag it through the front hall and out the door. The door opened and then slammed shut. Again, silence. Suddenly, a flash of lightning filled the house with a green blaze of light. A ghastly face stared at the fishermen from the hallway. Then came a crash of thunder. Terrified, they ran into the storm from the house. Thanks so much for joining me for day 2 of 13 Days of Halloween. I hope you had a nice time and it wasn't too spooky. I hope you'll join me for some more scary stories on the rest of our journey towards Halloween. You guys are awesome, and I will see you later. Thanks so much for joining me for day 2. I hope. What even? One Sunday morning, Ida always went to the 7 o'clock blah blah blah, the minister went on. Ida was so frightened she began to run out the door with a quick shrieking ghost. Dang it. Dang it. A quick shrieking ghost? What the crap is that? It's supposed to be with a pack of shrieking ghosts. They heard a woman scream. The scream turned into a groan and died away. Blood began to drip from the ceiling into the floor. Not the floor. It didn't drip into the floor. It dripped into the room and soaked into the wood of the floor. Ah!